Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Toronto. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Frank Karsten, and we are all set for the final match between John Stern and Robert Lombardi. It's been a long journey for John Stern. He came into the tournament hoping for a strong finish to get him back on the Pro Tour, and he has surpassed that and is now looking for a GP trophy here.
And Robert Lombardi on the right side here, he is from Hamilton, Ontario, about an hour away. He has a few Pro Tour appearances, but no big successes yet. He's in his first Grand Prix Top 8 and now trying to go for the #1 trophy.
Yeah, this is awesome stuff. John Stern has been here before. He's actually got 2 GP wins on his resume. He won in Atlantic City in 2013, I remember that, and also in Atlanta in 2014.
As for the decks that the players are playing, John Stern is on the white-green tokens deck that has been the most popular choice over the course of this event. It won the Pro Tour last weekend in the hands of Steve Rubin, and John is running it back pretty much the same list, except he has 4 copies of Lamphold Pacifist instead of Oath of Nissa. Now, that Lamphold Pacifist won't be able to attack yet, but once it transforms or possibly gains a +1/+1 counter, it can start to attack for 4 damage a turn. Robert Lombardi, in the meantime, is playing Esper Dragons, a deck that was quite popular in Standard before the rotation. It lost dig through time, but still Robert is showing that the deck still has the tools to compete. As for the matchup, I would have to say that John Stern holds an advantage because Robert's deck is filled with all kinds of 1-for-1 removal spells like File Tongue Invocation, sweepers like Languish. Those types of cards don't match up all that well against the Hangerback Walkers, the Nissas and the Gideons from John Stern's deck. On the other hand, Robert must have defeated a lot of white-green decks over the course of this event in order to get to the finals here. He also has 2 copies of Dragonlord Silumgar in his deck, which could prove to be a very powerful card against a deck filled with sweet 4 or 5 mana cards to take over, as well as few removal spells to take out the dragons.
What do you think about, turn 2, John Stern played the Lamphold Pacifist and not one of the Sylvan Advocates from his hand?
Well, it is a bit of a risky play, but if Robert would not have a play right there, then the Lamphold Pacifist threatens to transform immediately and then get in for 4 damage, whereas Sylvan Advocate would just attack for 2. So, high upside, but a bit of a risk. If Robert keeps hitting his curve, then the Lamphold Pacifist is not transforming, not dealing a lot of damage. And so far, John Stern has put out a bunch of creatures, but all of them are smaller than the Kalitas that Robert has just put on the battlefield.
Of course, one of the more powerful creatures in Standard, period. Sitting there for Robert. Now, it isn't quite the trump card that we've seen against some of these sacrifice decks or whatever, right? It's just going to be a very solid, good blocker, good attacker against John.
Basically, the ability that creatures get exiled rather than dying could be relevant against a potential Hangerback Walker, which John doesn't have on the battlefield yet, but could matter in the end. Also, in case John would go for the game plan of sacrificing 5 creatures to transform Westfall Abbey into Ormondal, a play that we've seen quite often over the course of this event, then Robert would get 5 zombies out of the deal.
Wow.
And that might allow Robert to turn that Kalitas into a huge life linker and even beat Ormondal in a damage race.
Okay.
So that card can do a lot of work over the course of this game.
String of Thraben Inspectors now for John Stern as we firmly hit the mid to late portion of the game, with Robert Lombardi having the board stable thanks to hanging on to Kalitas there. Wow, and this is kind of crazy. Kalitas is just holding off the entire army from John Stern here and keeping Robert safe at 15 life while he develops his mana, his hand, and starts to work things towards, well, starting to kill a bunch of stuff and take over the game. I mean, this is the control player stream, right?
Exactly. As long as Robert can stay alive here at a high life total and that Kalitas sticks around, then Robert will have the upper hand in the late game. He just has so many powerful dragons as well as counter magic to say no to whatever John Stern is doing, that the more the game progresses, the more Robert is winning. Now, John doesn't have a lot of ways to even get past this Kalitas. He has 4 copies of Dromoka's Command in his deck, which Would work in conjunction with the Lamphold Pacifist to set up a fight,
Okay.
but
Pretty
he,
risky.
he hasn't played it so far yet. And if he would draw it on the next turn and cast it, Robert's deck contains a lot of counter magic as well as spot removal to say no to that possible play.
Now, here's a big move now from Robert Lombardi. With that stable board state he's got with Kalidas, he's now played a Dragonlord Ojutai and is really going to make life hard for John Stern here.
Yep. The Dragonlord Ojutai, over the course of a few attacks, can easily slam the door on this game. It doesn't always match up well against Archangel Evacyn. Say if John Stern would just cast, say play a Plains here, pass a turn, and then flash it an Archangel Evacyn when Dragonlord Ojutai is attacking. That would be great, but John Stern is just making some Traben Inspectors.
Yeah, that's the third one of the game, and he's still missing his land drop somehow. He just keeps paying 3 mana for Thraben Inspector because he just immediately sacrifices the clue that it comes with to draw a card. All right, well, he hit his land this time. Does have mana for Dromoka's Command as well. Or a Hangerback Walker, but as you mentioned a few minutes ago, Frank, that is definitely mitigated by the fact that Kalidas is on the battlefield. So even though John is playing spells and using mana, he isn't really getting that much further ahead. What's the type of board state that he's trying to set up here?
Well, once John hits a 6 land, which he's of course close to, at least those Sylvan Advocates will turn into 4/5s and may start attacking. There's still the potential danger of John transforming a Westville Abbey into an Ormendahl. Looking at the deck list of Robert, once an Ormendahl hits the battlefield, he has, well, Dragonlord Silumgar to deal with it. That is one of the sweetest answers possible.
Probably the best.
And maybe Faltong Invocation.
Look at this. Attacking with Kalidas.
Aggressive.
Does that signal that he may have another one in his hand?
Ye-
Why would he just want to trade it off for something here, right?
Well, Robert, of course, has a bunch of instant speed removal spells in his deck, such as Ultimate Price or Grasp of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So if John tries to set up some nice blocks, then Robert always has the option of playing those removal spells on one of the blocking creatures. So for instance, if John Stern would block with a Lamphold Pacifist and a Traben Inspector, that's an easy play to make. Would be great in case Robert just has lands in hand. But if John would make that play, then Robert just cast Ultimate Price on the Lamphold Pacifist, getting a zombie, then the Traben Inspector is essentially just jumping, gets another zombie, so you don't really get ahead that way. It is tough for John to set up reasonable blocks in the face of a deck with so many instant speed removal spells and so much open mana.
And it does appear that John has not blocked. He's just going to take it. We're resolving the trigger for Dragonlord Ojutai here. Robert points at Kalidas to say, I'm also going to gain some life, but haven't had a chance to write it down yet.
Yep.
He finds one of those spot removal spells that you just mentioned, a Grasp of Darkness. He's also got Ultimate Price in hand, and looks like he's just going to go ahead and take down Sylvan Advocate and net himself a zombie here.
Yeah, Ultimate Price is an instant, but by playing it in his main phase, Robert ensures that he won't be blown out by an Archangel Evacyn in response on John's turn. Moreover, it allows him to flash back the Ultimate Price
Which
right now. Keep the board clear.
Well, and it looks like he may be trying to position himself to not get Ormondald here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could definitely be a factor as well.
I mean, he still is in danger. He could fire off a Grasp of Darkness if he's really afraid of it. He doesn't.
No, right now John has 4 creatures, so he he actually has 5.
got 5, yeah.
My bad. So if John has a land, he has the option of transforming Westville Abbey, but then it would be the only creature remaining on his battlefield
Yeah.
against a deck with 3 copies of Faltong Invocation.
Oh, God.
That doesn't seem to be an appealing proposition.
You know, Robert may actually be trying to tempt John into doing just that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, by removing just enough creatures.
The bait is real.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, John drew a Dromoka's Command.
Does that do anything here? I mean, the shields are down on Dragonlord Ojutai at the moment, but with 3 mana up, it does look a little scary there from John's perspective to just go firing off Dromoka's commands on his own creatures for fights.
He has to try something at least.
Yeah, it does feel like if he doesn't do anything, he's going to fall way too far behind.
John also has access to Archangel Evacyn in his hand, it looked like. which I was initially thinking he might want to flash in when Dragonlord Ojutai is attacking, but he's stepping 5 mana right now in his main phase. Yeah, between the cards in John's hand, he doesn't seem to have an excellent way to get around the overwhelming board state that Robert has, along with a bunch of cards in hand. Looks like John is just hoping that Robert's hand is not going to be great and that maybe he can eat an attacking Dragonlord Ojutai with an indestructible Avacyn. Unlikely to work against a blue deck filled with counter magic, but we'll see.
So I think that what we had there was the Lambholt Pacifist Transform trigger was on the stack. John announced it. Robert took the opportunity to use Grasp of Darkness before it transformed, just to make sure that he couldn't save it with a
Dromoka's command. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's pretty scary as well. Cletus attacking a couple of zombies for food. Only one can be eaten, but still.
That's potentially a 5/6 lifelink. Yeah, John is pretty far behind. I would be surprised if this Avacyn even resolves. Nope. Sinamgar Scorn says no.
In 2 different ways. So yeah, that's going to be real tough for John Stern. Robert Lombardi has really dominated this game from the get-go. John Stern never really able to get anything going here.
Yeah,
those Thraben Inspectors didn't look great. Just how slow they were, right? Like
not in this matchup.
No.
They generate some value, but the Esper Dragons deck is just way better in the late game. Once this Esper Dragon deck gets to attack with Ojutai and connect to get free cards, flash cards back with Jace, generate zombies with Kalidas. Sure, John may get 1 card up with a clue, but the cards in his deck are just no match for the cards in Robert Lombardi's deck once we get to the late game, which we are.
Yeah, we're definitely firmly into that position. I mean, the funny part about this board state is the Esper Dragons deck is the one who's doing the tokens, not John's deck. He's got more than John does. Here's a painful truth. He's going to drop down to 18 here, but really this is just going to make it so difficult for John to come back. This one looks like it's about in the books.
I
can't imagine a comeback here for John Stern with Robert at 18 life and that board state.
No,
he is just crushing this one.
Yeah, John doesn't have enough creatures to even activate Westfall Abbey if he wanted to. If he had Tragic Arrogance in his deck, that might have gotten him back, but he doesn't have any of those in his main deck, so just nothing that John could do at this point in the game.
All right, and that does it for game 1. So John Stern loses game 1 to Lombardi here, so Rob is going to go into the sideboarded games. Yeah, and I'm operating under the assumption that the Esper deck is even better post-sideboard. Generally, these control decks are.
That's true, because they get to improve with some good tools. Some of the key cards that I see in Robert's sideboard are Anguished Unmaking. That's an excellent way to deal with Planeswalkers. As well as 2 copies of Virulent Plague. Even though, if you look at the previous game, there were no tokens on John Stern's side, and actually the tokens were on Robert's side from Kalitas. But might still be a reasonable card for this particular matchup.
Okay.
And maybe Robert wants to board out some copies of Faltong Invocation, not the most effective against, say, Thraben Inspector.
All right.
Whereas John Stern, he has 2 copies of Clipwings in his sideboard, an excellent answer to Dragonlord Ojutai, maybe to Evolutionary Leap, that could give him some advantage in a long game.
This sounds very good for him.
Yeah, and he may just want to board out Dromoka's Command. It's not a great card for the matchup.
All right, thanks, Frank. We're going to bring in Randy now. I want to remind you while we do that we have the Magic Online Championship Series in a couple of weeks. We're going to be streaming it right here on Twitch on the main Magic channel. And we've got some really big names in that tournament as well. You're not going to want to miss it. If you're a fan of Jerry Thompson, he's going to be in there. Sam Black, Mike Sigrist.
What if I'm a fan of Oliver too?
Yeah, he's going to be there too. Welcome back, Randy. So,
hey,
game 1 to Robert Lombardi, and it wasn't really that close. The level of power of the cards that Robert played versus the level of power of play cards that John played was just not remotely close that game.
Well, I mean, look, the standard is all about Esper Dragons, right?
That's
That's how the story should end.
I mean, one top 8 of the Pro Tour, one's in the finals here. Maybe it's just still a fine deck. I don't know. Everybody keeps telling me it's not, but
I think there's a lot of fine decks.
that could be the case too. John's been here before. If he were to win these next 2 games, this would be his 3rd Grand Prix title, which is really impressive. Robert, this is his first GP top 8. He's looking to seal the deal against his countrymen here. Oh, look at that. Big Rig's going to move the trophy so we can see it a little better. I
So
like
the
that.
trophy is staying here in Canada one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. We took a look at the bracket a minute ago. We had 6 out of the 8 contestants here in the top 8 were from Canada.
Mhm.
And I mean, as it should be, right? This is a Canadian GP. They got to defend their turf.
I'm just surprised it wasn't Alexander Hayne doing it.
No kidding. Yeah, we got used to that, didn't we? For those of you that like to keep up on our matches via text, you can see on the right-hand side, that's Josh Bennett writing a text feature for the website. He's been at it for years and years and years. If you've been following written tournament magic, you have read Josh's work multiple times, I guarantee it.
I don't think he covered matches I played in, but I think it was close.
It's not that far off.
I think he's been at it, 15 years or so.
Yeah, he's a complete coverage veteran. That guy works real hard, too.
And he's good.
Yeah, very good stuff from Josh. No, not you, Rashad. Though you do work hard, too. Now, it's a little different here on the sideboarding. They always take a little bit extra time in the top 8, especially in the finals here. Judge, well, he's not as enthused about this finals match as we are, perhaps. But, you got to rest when you get your chances. But, the difference here, of course, with the sideboarding is that you can see those pink sheets of paper in front of the players. Those are deck lists. They are actually just directly consulting their opponent's deck list and trying to figure out, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? And I can tell you that changes things pretty dramatically. I think a lot of time, somebody like Robert will have a pretty clear game plan for what he wants to do against, the air quotes white-green tokens build. But they're different. They really are. John's playing, as we saw, 3 of the 4 3-man inspectors, for example. And I know that, some of the other more popular deck constructions of the white-green deck didn't have all of, they had 1 or even cut them. So there are things that you need to keep in mind as the Esper Dragons player here. Of course, it's the same true from John's perspective. He's going to know how many sweepers there's going to be post-board. He's going to know what type of spot removal spells are going to be in there and which ones he can try to play around. He's going to know how many answers to planeswalkers Robert's going to have post-sideboard, and he's going to try to maneuver his list to the most advantageous way possible. We'll see what happens.
And those deck lists are shared with the players just to minimize the impact of scouting and the impact of us showing people's decks on the stream over the course of the weekend.
I saw Robert was he was getting a back rub from his supporters, from his friends. He was kind of doing the loose neck thing, I could tell. And I don't know how much of it was on camera when he was playing against Doug Potter, but Robert was pretty stoic during the game, and then once the game ended, he just put his head on the table, face down. He was, you could tell there was a palpable sense of relief from him that he had been feeling a lot of tension in that game, and it was a pretty good game too. So you can see why.
Winner of this walks away with $10,000.
$10K
That's a lot of money.
US. It's fantastic.
I mean, Canadian, that's worth like $10,000 right now.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And, I mentioned it before, Randy, but this was a big step for John Stern. He's one of the stalwarts of the face-to-face games team, the Pro Tour testing team, and he had fallen off the Pro Tour. And, when you dedicate as much time and energy to Magic as John does, and you're not qualified, he hit silver, didn't quite re-qualify in time, this is a big deal for him. He's back. You know, he's going to be able to try to put together another run, get up to gold, make a run at platinum. You know, get that whole thing going on. Maybe next year. You know, this just has implications for John on a much bigger scale than just the GP. Now, he'll be dialed in here and saying, I'd like that $10,000, please, and a third trophy to put up on my wall. But, you know, the big fight for him coming in this weekend is already won when he made it into the top 8. All right. Do feel like we've taken enough time for sideboarding here. That was a bit of a stretch. They are supposed to still be expedient on it, but you know,
You get somewhere to be?
I just feel like in the finals, it's like, yeah, just let them have a minute to.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money on the line, and
For sure.
you don't want to rush the players for that. It's their finals; they've earned this position, and I think they can take an extra minute or two. But all right, here we go. Getting set up for game number 2. Let's get these mulligans out of the way.
Best 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
So if
that's
Robert
right.
Lombardi wins this game, he is your Grand Prix Toronto champion.
All right, and we are underway. Both players have kept. Is Robert Lombardi with Esper Dragons going to be able to finish off the tough John Stern and take this trophy, or is John going to even things up and force a game 3? He's got a hangerback walker as his first play of the game. Haven't seen old hangerback in a while, but he's done some good work here this weekend. Robert's going to just pass the turn back. He does have double blue up, something that John's going to be keenly aware of, as well as black mana, so good start mana-wise for Lombardi. Usual sequence, or a common sequence you'll see here, is either play a Nissa or play a Sylvan Advocate in an untapped land. Here we go. This works too. A second hangerback walker, and interestingly, yeah, he's going to get
running
scorned
it into
here.
a force spike.
Yeah. Does he just not have the third land? Is that what's going on?
I think he had
It's
one.
tapped.
He had one he wanted to play tap.
Oh, right. We actually saw it anyway. He revealed the Canopy Vista, but yeah, it was tapped. So
And he knew that was a risk. You saw him with the
Totally.
hanger back. Didn't reach for the die. Put it on the table tentatively. It's like, you got me?
absolutely.
And I think chose a 2-drop that he was willing to lose.
I think you're totally right about that, Randy, and this could really, these tiny, tiny advantages that the top players get, you know, turn after turn. All right, he's going to peck away for another one with the hangerback walker. And there's a Nissa.
Another Silumgar scorn?
Could be. It would counter it straight up, even if no dragon is revealed. It resolves. He gets a plant token out of the deal. Are we going to see an Anguished Unmaking or some other answer here? What's going on? Nothing from Robert. Interesting. Better do something this turn. Last game, I should say, we saw him play a Kalitas, which completely stabilized his board for the duration of the game.
Yeah, Kalidas would have been very good on that turn 4 as well.
Indeed, and he had a tapped Shambling Vents instead and passes it back. And, you know, Randy, I got to figure if he couldn't do anything last turn
Yeah.
with that same exact 3 mana, what is he doing this turn? Maybe he drew a removal spell? I think he may have drawn an ultimate price for the turn, which currently doesn't have a very good target, and that doesn't look like it's changing either. You know, ultimate pricing a plant token or a 1/2 Thraben Inspector is not the most exciting play. But you do what you got to do. Let's see what John wants to do. That'll help dictate a lot of what Robert's up to as well. Yeah, all right. So it looks like it's a Grasp of Darkness, and he's going to go ahead and fire that off with the ability from Nissa on the stack, which, of course, does give John still the opportunity to activate his Hangerback Walker here in response and get 2 1/1 Thopters out of the deal rather than just the 1. And he's going to do that.
Robert's happier with that than 3,
Indeed.
which is what would have happened if he'd let Nissa's ability resolve.
Also, this does set Robert up quite nicely for a languish. Right? If John says go and Robert says languish, that's pretty good for him. Does the plant have summoning sickness? Is that what he's saying? No.
Thraben Inspector.
Thraben Inspector. Okay. That's only attack for 1. So far, John has attacked for 1 3 times. Is there a languish? Languish.com. Boom. There it is. And that's a big step towards a trophy here from Robert Lombardi. He's not there yet, but that was big.
That was big.
It's exactly what he needed to happen. John's going to crack that clue on end step, sacrifice it to draw a card, draw his card for the turn, but he just feels like he's been completely reset. Now, his board state can look pretty good. This deck is good at recovering. He can make a plant, play a creature or 2, put the ball back in Robert Lombardi's court. Hanger back for 2 is what John Stern decides to do, and he's going to make a plant as well. So a reasonable follow-up here, but still no big pressure yet on Robert. He's been able to manage this board quite beautifully thanks to that languish. What is this, Ojutai? God, I'm putting myself in John's shoes, and I'm thinking of the card I don't want to see on every turn, and then Robert plays it. Ojutai, very difficult to deal with for the green-white deck. Can't really touch it here at all outside of Clipped Wings. And even when Robert starts attacking with it, he doesn't have a ton of options. Oh, hello, Clip Wings.
Can't touch it outside of what card, Marshall?
He had it.
Your powers seem to be working for
Yeah,
both
wait a
players
minute.
right
You're
now.
right. I'm doing it back and forth. I better stop. I don't want to influence the match any further, you know. What does John have here? Is he just going to hanger back it up? Maybe play a Thraben Inspector? What do you got? Hanger back. Plus. Okay, so John's setting up for the next turn here, where he can start playing creatures minus Nissa, get those plants in battle mode, and get that Hammerback Walker even bigger. All right, what John doesn't want to see here, I'm just going to keep going with it, is Kalidas plus removal spell for Hammerback Walker. That would put John behind yet again. Oh, no.
Step 1.
Oh, no. He has passed the turn back, though. There is no rush as long as Kalidas is on the battlefield. There's no good attacks here for John on the ground. And if Robert has an answer for hanger back, he can fire it off when he pleases. Again, though, just taking a snapshot of the board here, Kalidas dominating this board, stabilizing it completely with Robert at a full 17 life.
Yeah, everything's coming up Esper.
Indeed. Okay, so John is going to minus.
Yeah, this lets
Nissa.
this lets his Hangerback Walker get big enough to potentially attack into Kalidas.
Totally. It also means that Robert doesn't have. Oh, here's a Stasis Snare from John Stern. Oh, this is
And it
big
just
for John.
works.
It just happens. What does Robert have in his
Wow.
hand? He must be on nothing here. Because, another issue here is something that John will probably be noticing is that, if Robert did have Grasp of Darkness in his hand, I don't think he would have let that counter go on the Walker.
Right.
Now John Stern can just hold it up. Also, John had mana up for Dromoka's command at the time, which meant that could have been an issue. So I think that John is going to feel like this Hangerback Walker is going to survive outside of something like a Anguish Unmaking. Anguish Unmaking there actually would have been pretty sweet on the Stasis Snare. But anyway, none of it's happening here. Is Robert just flooding? Is he Kalidas flooded? What is going on? It looked so good for him a few minutes ago. But John has actually had answers to the big threats that Roberts put out. Stasis Snare and Clipwings did good work. Robert's going to activate Shambling Vent to kill Nissa. Land. Go. Wow. John draws another Clipwings, I believe. He's got a replacement Nissa, it seems. If he does, that's a 2-turn clock here. He does. Minus Nissa. Attack for 9. And this sets him up to just win next turn, or at least start forcing Shambling Vents to chump block. Oh. Okay, so it was an ultimate price that Robert had in his hand, but he can only use it to take down a plant token. And Robert needs to find some action here. Okay, he's going to repeat the same process that he did before. Activate Shambling Vent, take out your Nissa, gain 2 life, pass a turn back, and he is hanging on by a thread here.
He does survive this attack.
He does barely. John has a lot of ways to get that 1 extra power. Gideon, Nissa, Dromoka's Command, which I assume would have come out for this matchup, but you never know how many cards John can actually cut. Hey, how about a 3rd Nissa in a row?
Never-ending string of them.
And that could be lethal.
Could be.
If he minuses an attack and Robert has nothing, he wins. He's going to get a little extra value from a Sylvan Advocate here, though, before minusing his Nissa.
You got anything, Robert?
Wow, John Stern just wins that game. It looked so good for Robert Lombardi, and it wasn't to be.
Yeah, it stays a snare.
Huh.
Pulls Kalitas out of the way, and John Stern sends us to game 3.
You know, it's funny, you don't think of the deck as being full of answers, but apparently it is. All right, we're going to bring back old Dr. Frank Carson here for game number 3. While we do, you guys can take a look at our finalists here, as well as the trophy that they're playing for. Our table judge is going to hand out the deck lists here. And once again, we're going to kind of settle in for what will probably be a little bit longer of a sideboard than you may be used to, but a lot of money on the line here, so we're going to let the players go. Frank, welcome back to the booth.
Thank you.
I can't
Yeah,
believe that John won that game.
Yeah, I watched a bit of it while sitting behind you guys here. I think the sideboard card mattered a lot in that particular game. Clipwings from John Stern being instrumental in helping him get back at the point where he needed to answer the Dragonlord Ojutai. Clipwings has gone up in my my estimation a lot after it was first released. It is a nice answer to Archangel Avacyn, to Ormondale, but also in this matchup. If people pick up the Esper Dragons deck a bit more after Robert's finish with his deck in this particular tournament, you definitely want to have more Clipwings in your sideboard if you're playing green. But in the end, it was a plant token that dealt the final point of damage. John would not have been able to win on that turn without the plant. Always love to see that, the stylish death.
I like that too.
Surgically administered by your local neighborhood plants. And we should actually start to give names to plants of different sizes.
Oh.
The 4/5 plant, that's definitely a siege plant.
Siege plant, yeah, I like that. You came up with that one earlier.
And 3/4 plant, maybe a Tarmo plant.
Tarma plant. Okay, what's the 2/3 plant?
Best I can think of is a shambling plant.
Shambling plant. I like that.
Maybe there's a better name.
Is there a
for
plant
it, though.
inspector at 1 2?
Plant inspector. I like that one. Plant inspector. Go plants, go.
All right, looks like players have decided on their sideboards here while we were discussing other important matters. But Frank, this is it, buddy. One game, a trophy. This could be John's 3rd GP trophy or Robert's first in his first top 8.
Either way.
$10,000 is going to the winner of this game of Magic.
One game for all the marbles.
Love that. 10K.
Yep. Yeah, the final game to be played in this event, and it is a huge one. Of course, typically people remember the winner of an event.
Yes.
That player goes home with the trophy. The second place finisher, not going to be as happy. It's still going to be an excellent performance, right? You're better than over 1,700 players in the field, but the loser of this match is not going to walk away all that happy. The winner, he'll be ecstatic.
Yeah, I find that when the players finish second, they're usually pretty bummed out about it in the immediate, and then a few days later, they can look back and be pretty proud of their performance. But it stings. It stings. You know you don't get that many chances to win Grand Prix, right? It's just how many times do you find yourself in the top 8 of a Grand Prix, even if you're a serious Magic player? It's tough to do. It's just very, very difficult. And,
It's true.
to get within one game can be a bit heartbreaking. John doesn't look too worried about it. He's already got 2 trophies at home. He's back on the Pro Tour. Things are gone real well for him, but I know John is hyper competitive. He wants to win this title, and hey, the money doesn't hurt.
Looking at the demeanors of the players, John seems to be cheerful. He's been here before. Yeah, he's up for it. Robert seems to be a bit more tense.
Yeah, he is a little tense. I mentioned it to Randy while you were out of the booth, Frank, but he was getting a back rub
All
from
right.
his supporters here. You could tell they were kind of loosening him up, and I can't blame him. I'd feel like that too, to be honest.
Oh, it's great to have the support.
Yeah.
That's always a big part of going to a Grand Prix event. The camaraderie. You go with a bunch of friends, have a good time. Maybe you don't do well yourself, but one of your friends makes it to the top 8. It's always an excellent experience.
All right, we've got a mulligan from John Stern,
Yep.
but not from Robert Lombardi. So just for the sake of sportsmanship, I hope that John just only goes down to 6, puts a card on top, and we get to kind of go on our merry way. He is on the draw this game, so it won't.
Yeah,
won't be
so both
devastating.
players will have 7 cards at their first turn of the game. That is fair enough.
So we'll see. I have seen, by the way, that this green-white tokens deck tends to mulligan quite well, actually. They've got a very reasonable curve on that deck.
That is true, and most of the green-white tokens decks also have Oath of Nissa, which is an excellent card selection tool to sculpt your hand. Maybe you're missing lands, maybe you're missing action, you can always find it. John doesn't have that card, and he was a bit berated by some of his teammates from face-to-face on that inclusion.
Oh, no.
Or not inclusion, rather.
Sure.
But hey, it has been working out for him so far. John is not interested in spending a mana to sculpt his hand. He wants to get on board quickly with those Lamphold pacifists. So are those 6 cards going to be good enough? I see a lot of spells, maybe not a lot of lands.
Oh, he's going to 5.
Well, that stings for John.
He's got a flair for the dramatic, though.
And hey, his deck is easily capable of winning off of 5 cards still. If John can hit, say, a reasonable curve of Hangerback Walker into Nissa, into Gideon, even if Robert has 1 interactive card in the early turns, John may still be able to use all of those Planeswalkers to get a huge advantage over the course of several turns. So it's far from done yet. Robert, meanwhile, is keeping his cards close to his chest, not letting us
No.
or any of you getting a peek at his hand. So it's going to be a surprise what he is working with.
We know
But
he
yeah,
has 7 cards. That's
Yeah.
about all we know.
And he kept, so it must be a reasonable mix between lands and spells. One more game to decide it all. And it's been a great event all weekend. Over 1,700 players entered the event early on Saturday. Then after the 6-3 cutoff to day 2, only 400 remained. Now only John Stern and Robert Lombardi.
He's kept.
All right, 5 cards it is.
John's in the tank now about whether to put this card on the top or the bottom. Did he bottom it?
I believe he did.
Okay. Yeah, I just looked away for half a
Yeah.
second, and that was when he decided to do it, of course.
Same.
Yeah. All right. So Robert is going to kick things off with a dual land here. Pass the turn back to John, and like you said, he's going to be looking to get a quick start and a Westvale Abbey.
Turn 1 Westville Abbey.
Sub-ideal.
That is not a good sign. You typically don't play that land in the early turns at all. You typically start with Forest or Plains. Given that John started with a Westville Abbey, it indicates that his hand may not have a lot of colored mana sources. Well, at least the Plains, that's a start.
You know, it's interesting. He actually had that Plains in his hand as well.
All right. Well, maybe you want to put his opponent off a little bit. Make Robert think that he did not have a good mana base in his opening hand, whereas perhaps it was still decent.
Okay, well, Hangerback Walker on turn 2 for Stearns. Perfectly reasonable opener here. What does Robert have? Well, he's got Grasp of Darkness to take down the Walker and leave John with the Thopter token. He's going to play that on his own main phase to minimize how many Thopters John gets. John's going to crack in for 1. First blood goes to John Stern, who follows up with another Hangerback. The shields were down for Robert, so...
And no third land for John here.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal.
Not looking good for John. Sure, there's a Hangerback Walker, there's a Thopter token. John has more creatures on the battlefield, but Robert is hitting his land drops. And if John cannot put up a reasonable offense, Robert's late game is just better. So if John is giving Robert the time to set up his mana base, his draws, possibly get a Dragonlord Ojutai on the battlefield, this game may be over soon.
Okay.
And there we see the timing of Hangerback Walker in Robert's upkeep. The reason for doing that is that this way, if Robert wants to respond to the Hangerback Walker, he has to tap mana on his own turn, and you do it before the draw step in order to not give Robert a way to deal with it or minimize that.
This is really tough for John. He's missing another land drop, and you mentioned it a minute ago. That is Dragonlord Ojutai on the battlefield now. It's a Thraben Inspector, which is what John drew for this turn, and things are not looking good for Team Stern. He's going to main phase this one because his opponent's tapped out, and he can guarantee to get that extra +1/+1 counter on the Hangerback Walker before passing the turn back. But Lombardi gets to attack.
Yeah,
John can chomp.
This is exactly the point where you want to be as an Esper Dragon player.
Yeah.
You can attack with Dragonlord Ojutai. You have plenty of mana up. The opponent has not mounted a reasonable assault yet, or even a reasonable board state with lands in the first place. Robert Lombardi is squarely ahead in this game. John still has some outs, of course. Maybe he can draw Forest into Clipwings, for example, and catch Robert without a counterspell for it. But John won't have a lot of time to set it up. Especially with a potential Ob Nixilis coming down as well for Robert.
Oh, this just keeps getting worse for John.
Robert also has
Silumgar's
Ojutai's
command.
a Silumgar's command. That is a possible answer to, say, a Clipwings or land Stasis Snare, which could take out the Dragonlord Ojutai. And yeah, that Ob Nixilis won't really do all that much. There are no creatures that Robert wants to destroy. Drawing a card, sure, that's okay, but that Ob Nixilis is just going to get attacked by the creatures on John Stern's side. Seems better indeed to try to protect Dragonlord Ojutai and keep up the Silumgar's command.
John's forced to just sacrifice a clue here to draw a card. Robert does want to take a moment, though, while the shields are down. He's paused him.
It's possible that Robert is thinking about a Silumgar's command right now.
He can return a permanent to its owner's hand. He could.
Bouncing the Hangerback Walker, killing the Thraben Inspector.
Sure.
It looks like that's what he's doing. Given that John Stern tapped out and won't have mana for a potential removal spell on Dragonlord Ojutai, that's a fine way to use your mana if you're Robert.
Yeah, he did found a forest there, but this just feels like it's going to be too little too late for Stern, especially with Ojutai out. I mean, Ojutai is going to take care of this pretty quickly.
Yep, Ojutai is going to net a free card for Robert here. Yeah, the only realistic way out of this for John
He found a negate, Frank.
is with some removal spell for Dragonlord Ojutai.
That's what I was thinking.
But yeah, negate says no to that.
No. Robert's going to play a Jace, and I think we're looking at our GP Toronto champion, Robert Lombardi, here. I just cannot see how John Stern is going to be able to come back from this. And,
Yeah, that-
and
that
I give
mulligan
John a
was
lot of
crushing.
credit for playing out of really tough spots. He doesn't give up,
Oh, yeah.
but this is just so brutal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
He's
mulligan to
behind on
5
every
ended
metric.
up hurting him quite a bit. Yeah.
He's behind on land, life total, probably cards in hand, but maybe he's got one more, and creatures. He's just getting smashed.
Yes.
Very tough spot here for John Stern. He is going to try to work his way out of it. He's in the finals of the GP. Why not? But it is tough to imagine a scenario where he actually finds a victory here.
Yeah, well, Tribute Inspector is on the job, but I'm not sure he will be able to get the job done.
Yeah, this inspection came back negative.
Mm-hmm. Not even a land for John Stern there.
No, didn't hit one.
Sometimes the magic gods don't cooperate, and
It's a shame. I wanted to see a really great game here in the finals. This looks pretty one-sided in Robert Lombardi's favor here.
John even has to discard to hand size here.
But this kind of thing does happen, and the players have to fight through this. I'm sure this happened to Robert in the Swiss, where he found himself on the other end of this and had to fight through as well.
And credit goes to Robert. He has played this game well, putting down the Dragonlord Ojutai quickly and then realizing how he might still lose that game to a potential removal spell on it. So making sure to keep up the Silumgar's command and then eventually getting the negate, choosing that from the Dragonlord Ojutai. So he knows his way to victory. He envisions it going forward and then does everything he can do in order to accomplish that. Because he still hasn't played that Obnixilis, he's just keeping up mana to protect what is important.
Yeah, he's got that negate mana available at all times here.
Mm-hmm.
He did take a duress off of Dragonlord Ojutai, and he's going to fire it off here. John's going to show him the 7 cards in his hand.
Yeah, and that's just a bunch of creatures that are not going to help him much. To Hangerback Walker, well, they won't be able to block Dragonlord Ojutai anytime soon.
Yeah,
Is that 3 Sylvan Advocate?
it does look like it, yeah.
They don't help either. That checklist card is an Avacyn,
Mm-hmm.
which could help in 2 turns from now in case John draws land over the course of 2 draw steps, and
Yes.
Robert has absolutely nothing. But
Well, now that Robert's seen
Robert
what
already
Robert's
has
working with, he's going to play out his
mhm.
Obnixilis here.
Yeah, and Robert already has access to a potential Jace transformation, which could allow him to flash or target Silumgar's command in his graveyard on the turn that potential Archangel Avacyn would come down. So it seems like Robert has this game completely locked up. Maybe unless John Stern draws Clipwings on this very turn.
Right, this is the one window that he gets to kill Dragonlord Ojutai. This is
And
Robert decided to leave the shields down
Mm-hmm.
after having seen the hand and
Yeah.
knowing that he didn't have one, and to play as Obnixilis rather than just leave up a negate and strand all that mana. So he has left a small opening here.
Still gonna feature some kind of miracle if John manages to win this game.
And now we know Thraben Inspector is what he's got here. Well, he did
Well.
hit a Plains, I believe.
Yeah, it's a land. So if you're John, you're thinking, okay, maybe if Robert has absolutely nothing and doesn't see the potential line with Silumgar's command, perhaps I can draw a land on the next turn, put down Archangel Avacyn and block Dragonlord Ojutai.
More likely
It's-
he's thinking about what to get for dinner
Yeah.
and where he gets the check for his second place prize money here.
Fair enough. Maybe thinking, hey, I already got some trophies at home.
Yeah,
Fine, I'll give one to Robert. He has none.
I don't have room for this one.
He's a
anyway.
generous guy. No.
Yeah, Robert looks like he is on the edge of taking down this GP here. What a great run for Robert Lombardi.
Mhm.
Esper Dragons, I have to say, did not expect to see that one.
I
Even
agree.
in the top 8, let alone winning the GP. And I believe that that's what's going to happen in just a turn here. Robert's carefully going through the motions, making sure that he doesn't screw up anything.
Yeah, it's a tense moment.
Indeed.
You don't want to make any mistakes here when victory is so much within grasp.
That's right. But with the negate in hand, I just don't think that there's anything Stern can do to get out of this with his mana situation. He's going to play a Read the Bones for good measure.
Might
and there's
as well.
a second copy of Negate, which is just
Yeah, he doesn't really need anything
No.
at this point, really. But yeah, Esper Dragons maybe a surprise winner of this of this tournament.
yeah. Robert Lombardi with Esper Dragons is going to be our champion if John Stern. Or after John Stern passes a turn back here, Robert's going to have double Negate backup. And that does it. Robert Lombardi is your champion. You can see the relief as he kind of bows his head forward. He is your champion here at Grand Prix Toronto. Congratulations to Robert. Also, congratulations to John for a fantastic finish. He finishes in second place. But like I said, the real hurdle came when he got into top 8. That put him back on the Pro Tour, and I'm happy to say that John will be back out at the Pro Tour and heading up that team. That's going to do it here for the finals from Toronto.
Put your game to the test at a Grand Prix. These Magic celebrations are headlined by 2-day open tournaments with the best players in your region as well as top Magic pros from around the world. Upcoming Grand Prix include New York, Los Angeles, Charlotte, Manchester, and Minneapolis. Visit magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix for more information. There's never been a better time to get into Standard. Set rotation and Shadows over Innistrad have altered the format's landscape dramatically. Blaze a new trail at Friday Night Magic. For more information, visit magic.wizards.com/FNM.
Hey there, welcome back to the booth here in Toronto.